Okay, we are, I believe, seconds to starting here.
Maria and Diana.
Maria, and there you are. And hi, Maria, are you back yet? Can you turn on your? Not quite.
We have a quorum.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock and we do have a quorum. So we are going to keep this moving forward. Agenda item 8A6.
Yep. All right, members, this is SB 887. This is a committee bill on the Senate side. This is an omnibus bill. The bill does include the requested legislative amendments that the board has requested, which was to authorize license verification be confirmed through electronic means. It revises the board's wellness evaluation committee composition to require at least one veterinarian, 2 public members, and at least 1 RVT, and it deletes the provision related to the criteria for subject matter experts. And so because this bill does include the board's requested legislative amendments, I recommend that the board take a support position.
Kathy?
I'd like to move to support the bill.
Second motion. Great. We have a motion. Any more discussion from the board? Seeing none, there's no one in the room for public comment. Moderator, can you open it up for public comment online, please?
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the motion, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll call for a vote.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler? Dr. Grant?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Ms. Berber?
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Motion carries. The next is a potential legislative proposal that comes from board staff. This issue was identified as part of the alternate premises subcommittee when we were discussing mobile units, and the fact that the application itself does require VIN number and the VIN and the license plate number on the application. However, that's not supported by statute or by regulation because the form is not incorporated by reference. So we recommend the attached legislative proposal to be approved by the board, and it does some just restructuring, but it's not any substantial changes to the requirements themselves. The main thing is requiring the VIN and the license plate on the mobile application. Did I miss anything, Sarah? No. Okay.
Okay. I've read through this. This looks good to me. Do I see any other comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. See what is wording. The proposal to amend BPC section 4853 regarding registration of mobile units or vehicles.
Second.
Okay, any public comment? Moderator, can you open it up online? There's none in the room.
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment, they can raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon or click on the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send.
Would you entertain some friendly amendments to the motion?
Yes. Do you want me to go ahead?
Move to approve submission of the legislative proposal to the California State Legislature to amend Business and Professions Code Section 4853 as recommended by board staff in the attached legislative proposal.
Yes.
Dr. Grant, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, any comments in the room? None. Moderator, I'm sorry, did you already open it up?
I opened it and there were no requests for comment. Shall I close that now?
Yes,
Thank you.
we can have a vote.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Aye.
Dr. Grant?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Noland?
Aye.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
Ms. Ferber?
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. So the others, just as a refresher for members and for new members, the other board monitored legislation, we typically don't go through each one, but just to this is more of an FYI, these are the ones that we're tracking. If at any time board members do want to discuss them, we can move them up and discuss them at this time if you'd like. There are two that I just want to, we're paying extra close attention to. One, well, AB 996, that's Lowe's bill regarding conflicts of interest for continuing education. There's been some confusion around this bill. There was confusion that it would require any of our continuing education providers to have this conflict of interest, but that's not actually the case. The way that the bill reads is those boards who are responsible for approving continuing education would then have to do regulations that regarding conflict of interest. The board has authority to approve continuing education. It's not required to approve, and since the board is not required or has that responsibility to do it currently, we don't have to do regulations for it. However, if the board did decide at some point to start approving continuing education, we would have to do the regulations to make sure that it has that conflict of interest language. But one thing I wanted to keep in mind, and perhaps we addressed this during sunset, in our current structure for statutes, there is a long list of continuing education providers that are already statutorily approved, and to leave it open for the board to have these one-off to create approvals for continuing education that aren't already included in the list could be quite cumbersome, but also it could open the door for someone to come and say, well, you have authority, let me apply and do it. One thing the board may want to consider is just changing that statute to remove that ability so then it just stays with whatever's approved in statute, which is a very long list already.
Kathy?
I guess you answered this. I just want to make sure this bill, if it got enacted, there's so many continuing education courses, as you know, from providers everywhere.
Yeah.
It does not require providers does not require all those providers outside of the state that our licensees can get CE from to do this whole conflict of interest check.
Because the bill reads that the boards who are responsible for approving, but any of them that are already in statute, that's not our approval, that's the legislature saying these are all approved. And so they don't then would have to go do the conflict of interest statement. Does that make sense? It'd just be ones that the board approves. So if the board starts approving continuing education, we would need to have that regulation.
Okay, any other comments or concerns? I don't see any hands raised online.
The other one I did want to just bring up, not necessarily take any kind of position on, was SB 373. This is specific right now to Board of Behavioral Sciences, Board of Psychology, and Medical Board of California. This is something to keep on the radar too, because this touches Business and Professions Code 27, which says what is required, the boards are required to post on their website, which includes disciplinary action and the address of record. What this does is it allows, or it prohibits those three boards from posting the full address of record, and instead of doing city, county, state, and zip code, I believe. And the rationale behind it is the concern with those professions working from home or having out of their home office and having that physical location be their address of record. I think that those similar concerns are to our licensees as well. Not necessarily something for the board to opine on. I just think that there's similar concerns. And so I reached out to CVMA and let them know about SB 3732 to put it on the radar.
Okay. I don't think there's any motions needed, but we do need to take public comment. None in the room. Moderator, can you please open it up?
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the motion, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon.
To clarify, there's no motion on the table. We're just taking public comment for the rest of the agenda item.
Thank you. My apologies. And I do not see any request for comment on this agenda item. Shall I close public comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry, y'all. Just real quick before we close agenda item 8, I just wanted to highlight AB 1237, which is exciting because it's student financial aid for the veterinary debt relief program, establishing one. So in terms of access to care and also getting more veterinarians that are diverse, this is really exciting. So I was just excited about that one.
Thank you for, yeah, I remember reading that too, but I'm glad you brought that up. Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess that doesn't matter. We don't have, I mean, I guess I can make a motion for us to support, right? I don't know if this was something that we do. I mean, I know we just closed all of this, right? I'm sorry, y'all. I guess I was excited about this, and I think that as a veterinary board it would be great if we supported, if we haven't supported already, or I don't think we have made a position on it. Well, I don't know if we can, but
I mean,
I
think we can as a board support any of these.
Yeah.
So if you want to make a motion, that's definitely something you can do.
That is what I'm doing. I'm making a motion to support 1237.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Is there any more discussion? No? Okay. Any comments from the public? Moderator, would you please open it up? This is a motion to comment on.
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A. If anyone would like to make a comment on the motion, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or click on the hand icon to raise your hand. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call for a vote.
Dr. Solicito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Aye.
Dr. Grant?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Aye.
Ms. Prado?
Yes.
We didn't hear you.
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Berber?
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Okay. We are down to the last few items. Agenda item 9A, status on pending regulations.
We actually took that yesterday. We took 9 and 10, so we're down to 11.
Oh. Hang on, let me pull
We
this
still have
up.
to do the normal agenda plan for today, too.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. All right, so this is the president's report. So this has been brought up a couple times through the MDC and through our meetings yesterday, but I did want to talk a little bit about Dr. Johnson. I think most of you are aware that we lost a very special colleague last month, and Dr. Lane Johnson passed away at his home on March 29th. Dr. Johnson devoted countless hours of his personal time over the last 12 years to the board. He started as an in-house consultant and an inspector in 2011 and became a subject matter expert shortly thereafter. Over the years, Dr. Johnson trained numerous board staff, inspectors, and subject matter experts. He provided solid expert testimony in formal disciplinary hearings and provided guidance to those who had not yet testified. Dr. Johnson was our go-to person for quick responses, reviews, and guidance. Dr. Johnson's service to the board didn't stop there. He also helped many veterinarians struggling with addiction rehabilitate and maintain sobriety through his 9 years of service on the board's Wellness Evaluation Committee. In Dr. Johnson's July 2022 application to the Wellness Committee, he shared how it was extremely gratifying to see shattered lives being rebuilt. By providing a mechanism to assist these individuals along the road to recovery, we are fully fulfilling our mission and also restoring professional lives so that they may once again become responsible members of the profession and society. Their stories of recovery will influence others and carry the message of recovery out into their communities. His commitment to the board's mission and his profession was evident, and we felt it every time we talked with him. We have lost one of us, and I have no doubt that we will feel and see the impact of his loss for many years to come. As many of you know, Dr. Johnson's teachings weren't just shared with us. He also served as a staff veterinarian at UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, where he instructed a variety of small and large animal clinical courses, oversaw the live animals used for teaching at the school, and taught the jurisprudence course to all third-year veterinary students. In addition, he provided all the regulatory content for the temporary licensing curriculum course that was administered by the School of Veterinary Medicine to all new faculty and house officers who required California licensing for their UC Davis positions. In honor of Dr. Johnson, UC Davis, the University of California flag was flying at half-staff from March 29th through the 31st. As all the board members know, we were planning on presenting a plaque to Dr. Johnson for his 9 years of service on the WEC today. We now hope to provide that plaque to his family. So we have that for his family, and it just is a huge loss. So on to happier things. We want to welcome Dr. Grant. It's kind of at the end of the meeting, but Dr. Grant to the board. He was appointed on February 24th. Dr. Grant is an equine surgeon who has been a pioneer in his field, helping to develop the surgical treatment used in horses for wobbler syndrome, as well as developing of prosthetics for horses requiring amputation. A good friend of mine interned with Dr. Grant at San Luis Rey Equine Hospital, and she told me Dr. Grant was the best equine veterinarian she had ever worked with. We are clearly lucky to have Dr. Grant join us on our mission. So, then to the more mundane, an update on the work being done. It's still exciting to me, but in February, I attended the President's Training. I'm going to just kind of be pretty quick here, given the time, and not go into too many details. It's just training for board presidents and vice presidents. I attended that last year as a vice president, again this year, which I got a lot from. We also had the subject matter expert training, which I attended, as well as a cannabis meeting, which was part of my MDC subcommittee commitments. I received training from Tim on approving travel expenses, and I actually completed my sexual harassment training.
Prevention training.
Sorry.
Yeah, we always say.
Good point. That's a good point. The prevention training. In February, Jessica wrote and the executive team approved a letter of support for UC Davis to host SAVMA, and that we learned yesterday has that was a success. And then Jessica drafted and the executive team approved the comments on the CHRB proposed amendments to CCR Title IV, Section 1867, that the board approved in our January meeting. In March, we met again for cannabis guidelines. I attended the DCA Vet Med Board leadership training, and then we also had a meeting with the CDFA, again, as part of my MDC subcommittee. We attended the Board of Governors meeting with the CVMA, which was always enlightening, and we went over some of this legislation. That was what the main focus, I feel like, of the meeting was, but those are, I think, really important and helpful to get a feeling for what's happening in veterinary medicine. We got an update on xylazine from Dr. Sullivan, and I just did want to mention that it does look like the AVMA has been successful in trying to retain the veterinarian's ability to use xylazine as outside of a controlled substance, but we'll see how that goes at the national level. Dr. Solicito and I reviewed the many applicants for the Wellness Committee, which was amazing. We had, I believe, 12 applicants altogether, and then our single star applicant for the MDC. We chose our top candidates. In April, we did onboarding with Dr. Grant. Dr. Fowler unfortunately resigned from the MDC, and as you know, we're holding a special meeting in May for the interviews for the MDC. I also, a couple weeks ago now, watched a webinar provided by the AAVSB and HISA about HISA, that's the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act, just to get an overview of how that is, what that is for me, so that I can understand a little bit better of what that is. And then I'm hoping to schedule something to meet with them, just so we can understand a little bit better how things will integrate with our board and their rules, which some are similar, some are different. And with that was all we did so far these few months. And finally, I don't really want to do this, but we have to, because we have to say goodbye. I have a couple of plaques. The first plaque is for Miss Bowler. I have this whole long list of things that she's done with the ICVA and as a board member. I think it's summarized quite nicely here, though. So Ms. Bowler has devoted her valuable time and expertise to public service on behalf of California consumers, the veterinary profession, and the board. During her 9 years of service, Ms. Bowler was at the forefront of every complex state and national issue. As previously mentioned, she served on multiple councils, committees, and task forces, including serving as president on the International Council for Veterinary Assessment, the first public member to do so. Ms. Bowler's unmatched knowledge of the legislature, politics, negotiation, and veterinary medicine was integral to the board's consumer protection mission. The California Veterinary Medical Board is tremendously grateful for her service and her professionalism, and extends its sincere appreciation for her exemplary leadership and public service.
Thank you. Oh. Thank you. Oh, that's very nice.
Okay, and then it's Jennifer, can we put you on the MDC? She's like, I'm done with the MDC.
She's done both.
Yeah. So I couldn't even come up with a full list of all of the committees she's served on and things she's accomplished. But Jennifer Laredo, who's been on our board for quite some time, Ms. Laredo has devoted her valuable time and expertise to public service on behalf of California consumers, the veterinary profession, and the board. During her 9 years of service on the board, Ms. Laredo also served on the board's multidisciplinary advisory committee and multiple state and national committees and programs. Ms. Laredo carried the torch for numerous issues impacting RVTs and consumers and was essential to the board fulfilling its consumer protection mission. The California Veterinary Medical Board is tremendously grateful for her service and her professionalism and extends its sincere appreciation for her exemplary public service. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yay.
Okay, so that is the end of my president's report. So any comments, questions? All right, any public comment? None in the room. Moderator, would you please open it up?
Certainly, we've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment on the president's report. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And I do not see any requests for comments. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we are on agenda item 12. Ms. Laredo.
All right, I'll try to follow that report. So it's very short. I only have a couple of updates. The AAVSB has announced the new VTNE content outline. They did perform a comprehensive job analysis, and there's a new outline that will be administered in the November-December window of this year. They do reevaluate that exam about every 5 years to make sure that the questions are current and reflect job competencies of entry-level vet techs. So prepare for
Speak a little closer to the mic. You're pretty quiet.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Did everybody catch that? New VTNE content being released November, December 2023. So candidates, study hard. We all know about, a new topic, we all know about Vet Tech Week. I've always been a big advocate of that, which is the third week of October. Then there was Veterinary Receptionist Week that was created actually at the end of April, so starts next week is Veterinary Receptionist Week. Generally, there are weeks and days to celebrate those in the industry. So NAVTA has just announced Veterinary Assistant Day, which is May 17th. So typically with Vet Tech Week, most hospitals would celebrate all non-DVMs, and there was some contention with that. So now everybody has a week or a day to celebrate. So Veterinary Assistant Day, May 17th. Also, I'm just briefly going to mention this. I had mentioned the last time that there was a new apprenticeship program in the state of Washington, which was going to be a pathway for licensure for RVT, well, for licensed veterinary technicians. NAVTA just recently called for action for asking for support in opposing it. It's been about 3 years that it's been in process. It was approved by the Board of Governors. I'm not clear on which Board of Governors. The article was very vague, but NAVTA is now asking for support in opposition to that apprenticeship program. So I think there may be some more information being released about that. NAVTA also has a mentor program for veterinary technicians, and if I can open this link, which may or may not happen. The mentorship program was for support of the mental health and well-being of the profession. So I know the AVMA has a similar program as well. So mental health is a topic that's been very important in the industry, as we've mentioned before. And last point is that the MDC was assigned to research the RVT pathways to licensure, which has been on our list of topics for a while. So there was some question as to what the intent of that was, and it is a little bit confusing because there are so many pathways to licensure already in California, but the intent of that was to have somebody with some sort of a bachelor's in an animal-related major combined with their clinical experience, so another alternate route. So hopefully they will make some progress, at least researching that. It may be a moot point with some of our other regulations that have passed, but at least they can evaluate any of the other pathways. And with that being my final report, I would like to say a thank you to everybody. Thank you to the board. Thank you to every past and present member, staff member, the association, CVMA, CARVTA. We may not always agree on everything, but I have learned a lot from everybody. All of the staff, thank you, Jessica, Tim, Rob, everybody. I mean, everybody has been so supportive. It has been quite a journey. So you guys aren't rid of me. You'll hear from me. But thank you all. Any questions?
Kathy?
I would just like to recognize Jennifer. I mean, yeah, because obviously everything we've all said and Christina said is so true about your service, but the rest of us board members, we come to our quarterly meetings, and we have 2 days a month sometimes, but since you've been on, you have served on the MDC as the only RVT every day, every year, and so that means you're at 3 days, full days, plus the work you do for the MDC, which is an incredible workload given your professional workload, personal and everything else. So I just think the state of California owes you a huge debt of gratitude, as do RVTs. You've been terrific representative.
Thank you. I'm sure my dogs, cats, and horses would appreciate the gratitude as well, but.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to make a motion to approve Kathy's comments now. I agree, yeah. Okay, any public comment in the room? And moderator, can you open it up for public comment online, please?
Certainly. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. Anyone may also raise their hand, and I see we do have a hand raised, so I'll go ahead and call on that person. So Nancy Ehrlich, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. You're unmuted.
Thank you. On behalf of the California RVT Association, I would like also to thank Jennifer for her outstanding service. She's put in so many hours on behalf of all of us, and we really appreciate all the time that she has put in. So thank you, and hope to see you again.
And I do not see any other requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are moving on to, we are skipping because we've already done the other item there. So we are on to agenda item 16, executive management reports. Does anyone need a bathroom break before they come up and give those, or no? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Make sure I'm sharing the correct report. The administration report, a quick staff update. I was able to fill 2 of my open positions. Our cashier position was filled by Laura Bishop, and our open RVT technician position was filled by Brandy Gutierrez. They both started in early February. We're very excited to have them on board. I'd worked previously with Laura at another board, and I believe she, along with Brandy, will make a very positive impact to our stakeholders and applicants. And again, our org chart is attached to the meeting material, so you can see our open vacancies, and any pending vacancies that will be filled have dates on them. And after this, I'd like to turn it over to Karen Munoz, because I know she's on a time constraint, who will cover our budgets issues.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Karen Munoz. I'm the budget manager with DCA Budget Office. I just want to thank the board and the executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present the board's expenditure projections and fund condition statements. If you could refer to item 16A, attachment 2 and 3, these are the documents that I'll be going over as they provide a lot of information to the board's budget. First, I'm going to start with attachment 2, the board's expenditure projections. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 8. This document's purpose is to provide the board with detailed expenditures through a point in time, and in this case, it's February, as well as projections through the remaining of the fiscal year. When reviewing this report, the top portion is the board's personal services expenses, and then followed by the operating expenses. The green column will be the board's prior year actual data. The blue column is the board's budget, and then the first orange column is the projections to year end. As we move to the end of the document, you'll see that the board has a beginning base budget of nearly $7.3 million. Year to date, the board has expended approximately $4.6 million and is projected to spend a total of close to $6.9 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of $393,000, a reversion percentage of 5.38%. The next document, attachment 3, is the board's fund condition statement. And just as a quick reminder, we read this document top to bottom and then left to right. So that's how I will be going over it. The left column is the board's prior year 2021-22 actuals. It shows that the board began 21-22 with an adjusted beginning balance of just over $5 million. The board collected close to $8.2 million in revenue and then expended just over $6 million. The board ended 21-22 with just over $6.9 million in a reserve balance, or about 11 months in reserve. The current year, we are currently projecting the board to bring in approximately $8.4 million in revenue and expend approximately $7.3 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of just over $8.1 million or 12.2 months in reserve. The board's fund is stable with a healthy reserve through what you can see on this document, the 2025-26 and ongoing. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close the fiscal months in the current year. And just a few things to note for the fund condition, it is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years, so you'll see it 7.4, 7.6 and ongoing. That is a result of result of personal service adjustments. These include general salary increases as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. So the budget office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase in expenditures on these fund condition statements to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. The fund condition does not include increased licensing or enforcement expenditures, which could create additional cost pressures to the board's fund in out years by requiring additional resources to support those increases. And then lastly, I'd like to note that the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which could also increase pressures on the fund. The budget office just will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statements and keep a line of communication with executive staff for any future needs. And that's all I have for the two documents that you see in front of you. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer anything you have. Any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions here? No, I don't see any online. I had a couple questions, and I don't know if it's for you or for Jessica. We have a loan, right? How much is that loan for?
So Karen, she's referring to, it's identified in attachment 3, the loans from the general fund. So that was the transfer between, Karen, is that the 256 that's identified in there, or is that the 157, the transfer and loans to the general fund?
The 256, that was not, that's just a reduction to the board's fund based on that executive order, that 5%, or the AB 84. That's just a reduction to the fund. The 157 and 149 was that limited term resources that you received. You got a general fund loan to support those costs, and they'll be reverting back after the 2 years.
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so that was a loan to help cover the anticipated costs for the animal blood bank bill. Remember, we were requesting money to pay for a limited term AGPA to do regulations if needed for that bill. We have not had the need to do that. CDFA really took on the reins to do those guidelines, that they were working in collaboration with us. There's not a lot of regulations right now that have, any that have been necessary right now, because there's still a lot of unknowns. We haven't actually used any of that money. But after that 2 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but I think the trigger wasn't the 2 years. The trigger was once the board receives or recoups the cost from the license fees up until a point. I think there was a deadline, but I'm not positive. Maybe you know, Karen.
Yeah, the intent was to receive the money from the general fund until the board was able to recoup the money from the licensees, and then there could be a request for additional resources at that time that actually comes out of the board's funds. But it wasn't an appropriate to have current licensees cover the cost of resources that were not towards the current licensee population. So that was a case. I know that the funds will be dropping out in 24-25, and that is like a net zero to this loan. So in 24-25, because there is an appropriation increase to support it. So it's a net zero. You received a loan, and then there's an appropriation increase to the board's annual, what they can spend. And then it'll be a net zero when it falls out 24-25.
Okay, thank you. And then what does it mean when you were saying the 5.38%? Was that a reversion? Was that what the term was used? I'm sorry that I don't understand that term, but can you explain it?
Yeah, the 5.38%, that just gives you a different idea of the percentage of what your actual budget was to what is being reverted back to the fund. So the savings that you did not spend in your current appropriation that you're authorized to spend. So you're authorized 7.286, you're spending 6.892. So 393 is supposed to go back to is projected to go back to the fund at the end of the fiscal year. And that equates to 5.38 of your full budget. It's just a percentage of the 393 is 5.38 of your full budget of 7.2 million.
Okay, and when you say it reverts back to the fund, that means that it's not put in reserves for us. It's
no, so, and this might be helpful also for Dr. Grant, who's kind of new to the budget, but think of the board fund as your bank account, right? And the board doesn't control, we can't just spend money out of our fund for whatever we want. We have to receive budget allocation for it. So you think of it as getting a check, right? Say your check is for $10, just to make it easy. You get a check for $10, you have $10 to spend. Well, we only spent $7. That means $3 goes back into your bank account. That's essentially what that's doing. We didn't spend all of the money that the check allowed, so it stays in the fund. So.
Yeah, but does that increase our fund or the allowance for us to spend in the following year if we needed it?
So it doesn't give us more funding. It will stay in the fund. But in order to if we want another line item or more budget allocation, we would still have to go to the legislature to do the budget change proposal process in order to increase the amount of a check that we're able to spend. But it doesn't give us more money in the actual fund.
Great. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. Thank you very much. I think that's it. Sorry, Dr. Nolan.
No, that's fine. Maybe just for clarification, I remember several years ago, we had the state borrow money from us, right, from our fund. Remember that? And then so I was assuming that the money that is the loans from the general fund, that's money coming back in, that's replacing the money that they already took out.
I think that's the
I think that's the
256.
256 that Karen's referring to.
Well, but I didn't think that was tied to any blood bank bill. Remember?
No, there's two separate things going on, right?
Yeah.
There's the general funds loan that they borrowed from us,
Right, and that's,
which was paid back.
yes,
And there's a general fund loan that we got because of the blood bank bill to pay for the implementation costs of it.
great. I
Those
just wanted to,
separate things.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure those are, we have two
Yes.
things. Yes, okay.
Okay, yes, Kathy.
I just wanted to go back to a point that's in the text here on the revenue report, where it says staff proposes repaying the general fund loan sooner, and I assume that is the blood bank loan that we may not need. Repaying it sooner so it doesn't reflect in our balance and make it look like we have more than we need. Is that something you need is that a staff decision? Do we need to do a vote on that?
No, that's something that I'll just work with budgets on about
Okay.
that loan if we're able to pay it back sooner than later.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. No one, okay.
If you don't mind, if I can clarify, the 256 was not a loan to the general fund. It's actually a payment to the general fund based on an executive order based on AB 84. That was part of the pension repayback. So when the pandemic happened and we were doing pension payments and everything slowed down,
right.
we didn't make those payments, and so it was just catching up. And so the 256 was the board's share of those payments. I don't show an outstanding loan to the general fund from the board at this time. So the only loans that we are tracking is the 157 and 149. And again, that is it's not necessarily a general fund, a normal general fund loan where there's interest that needs to be paid back or anything like that. It's a general fund appropriation that was given to the board to cover the cost of the appropriation that the board was granted. So the board got 156,000 in 2022-23 and 149 in 23-24. General fund support provided those amounts as well. So it's like a net zero adjustment or a net zero impact to the board. Once those funds fall out, so does the loan for those. So it's going to be a net zero. So I don't even know if there would be a necessary need to remove them, but we can discuss that for the 23-24 fiscal year if it's not needed. We can remove the appropriation at that time for the board.
Okay. Public comment in the room is nobody is here. Open it up online, please.
Certainly, this is the moderator, and we're opening up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Are there any comments? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. And thank you for presenting that to us.
Thank you.
We're moving on. Yes?
I want to confirm, it looks like from the org chart, we only really have 2 vacant positions. Is that correct? Which is terrific if it's true, and I want to congratulate Jessica and the staff and Tim on this, if I'm reading the org chart correctly.
We do actually have another vacancy. Our enforcement, we had an enforcement analyst or tech leave on April 4th. So we do have a vacancy there. And the open positions under me are for the limited term, or under the Associate Government Program Analyst. That is the blood bank position, which we will not be filling. And then the other one we have is for the receptionist, and we may be doing some restructuring to not fill that position.
Okay, that's great. I've just seen the chart where there have been more vacancies.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to the entire team that you, staff, that
Yep.
you guys have been able to keep them filled.
We're working very hard to do that in a timely manner.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Tim, I think you're up next for agenda item 16B.
Yes, thank you. This is for the examination and licensing updates. I do have updates related to the ICVA, calling out what they've done since our last meeting. On February 9th, they sent out the request for nominations for open positions on their Assessment Development Committee, specifically for experts in their bovine, dairy, small ruminant, exotic companion animal, and poultry areas. And March 19th, the ICVA announced their assessment grant winners. They were all from Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. And then there was the newsletter, Veterinary Assessment in Focus, with a lot of updates from the ICVA and the message from their CEO. And again, on March 30th, their CEO was elected to the vice chair of the National Academies of Practice Veterinary Medicine Academy, which is a nonprofit organization that works to promote accessible and affordable health care for all, patient advocacy, interprofessional collaboration, and model excellence in inclusive preventative care for veterinary medicine. Licensing updates regarding continuing education. You can see the total that we have, the total licenses we have audited and those who are non-compliant. We are including RVTs now in our continuing education audit. So the number of licensees we will be auditing is going to increase as we are pulling that renewal population as well. Also, with the recent changes, we are now able to issue citations to those who are non-compliant with continuing education. Those are the big updates regarding continuing education. Breeze updates were primarily internal updates to make quality of life improvements for staff, believe in enforcement and licensing enforcement so they can better identify, what was it, closures, case closures, I believe, and with licensing updates to the military and asylum specific expedite requests and requirements. And again, we are moving, we're working with the Office of Information Systems and DCA to continue to make improvements to Breeze. And we'll be doing this, moving forward to implement all statutory and other improvements as needed. For performance measures, we have received fewer applications as compared to this point last year. Again, I would like to reiterate that we have eliminated our duplicate applications, so we will be receiving fewer applications overall as a net whole for this. Also, the way that we have restructured examinations and how licensure is achieved in California for veterinarians and RVTs is the candidates will apply to us once they have met all qualifications for licensure. So there's no longer an examination application that we would approve before a licensure application. There's now just a licensure application once the candidate has met all requirements. So we do anticipate a large increase in veterinary applicants in the coming months once graduation hits. I believe last year we had close to 200 in a couple months. So those applications will increase. And similarly, once the VT&E has finished its examination, we will receive an increase in RVT applicants as well. And similarly, this impacts our licensing. It is following the trends we are expecting with the cycle of examination and graduation. So again, once the VT&E scores are out, we will anticipate new applicants, more applicants applying and getting licensed, so those numbers should increase. The surprise on my end was the increase in VA-CSPs. We've now surpassed already the number that we had licensed last year, and we still have a few months to go. So I hope this means that the profession is seeing more involvement and, getting the help that they need in their offices. And then licensing performance measures and processing times can be seen in our chart below, and the licensed population as well. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I had a couple of comments more than, I had a question. First of all, nice job. I am so impressed with the performance measures and the days. I just remember when it was 2 months, and at least 2 months for a license application, and to see 0 at the bottom of some of those is amazing. And so congratulations, and that just is really testament to all the work you guys have been doing to streamline things and put things online. And I mean, it's since I started, this is like night and day. So thank you so much for all of you for your hard work on that. I was a little surprised at 20% of people audited on CE not having it.
And that it's not, it's those who haven't met the required 36 hours. So
right.
It is the range from I didn't do any to I missed 1 hour.
Right. That is a good clarification, but still, that's a pretty high percentage. It shows that it's good that we're auditing. That was a comment. And then I just wondered the difference between, where is it? Veterinarian initial license application and veterinarian licensure application, because there's also a veterinarian renewal application. So what are the difference between initial and just licensure?
So the veterinarian initial license application is a holdover from our dual applications.
Okay.
These candidates still have outstanding applications that we cannot complete yet because they are missing, for example, a social security number, because they haven't completed the visa process, something along those lines.
Okay.
And then the veterinarian licensure application is our new application that is an all-in-one application.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right. I'll just open it up for public comment. Seeing none in the room. Moderator, please open that up online.
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment about the examination licensing report, you can look for the question mark, type the word comment in that text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is agenda item 16C, the enforcement report. And we have Matt, Patty, and Robert. Rob.
He's in trouble.
I know, Robert.
That's all right.
Hi, guys.
Let me give him a name.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So first we have a staff update for you. Since the last meeting, we did hire a new enforcement analyst, Usa Visuchisho. Miss Visuchisho USA, thank you. I had it and I practiced it the whole time, and then I get up here.
She's mine, so I know.
USA, she spent the last 3 years working with the Contractors License Board in their investigations department on complaint investigation, so she's kind of been able to jump right in there. And then just kind of toward Kathy's comment earlier with the org chart, we did have Min Nguyen, who had come on with the board in November of 22 as our enforcement technician, accepted a promotional position with the Department of Toxic Substance Controls in March, and her last day with the board was April 4th. So, you know, she was a great help while she was here and helped us get our intake numbers down significantly, and we're really excited for her to be moving on with her career, though. So that's really good news for us. I've posted the vacant position, actually got an update recently, too, from our H&R department that I can recruit the position permanently, since the prior incumbent from November of 2021, when the position was vacant, has now been put in a permanent position. So I might just repost the position to increase the candidate pool, because it's a little bit different with limited term postings than permanent postings, just in terms of how many candidates you get and sometimes the quality of the candidates as well.
Okay, so moving on to inspections, we do have a couple of new inspectors in the Santa Clara and San Diego areas, so that's exciting. We did lose our Orange County inspector, so our San Bernardino inspector is going to be covering that area until we can find a replacement. And also an update on the mobile inspection app. A vendor has been selected, and so OIS will be working with the vendor to discuss, you know, integration of the application and integration debris, and then we're going to be talking about timelines, costs, and just next steps. So that's something that we're continuing to work with OIS on.
Patty, that's the one
mobile app
that you got the grant
yes,
for. Yes,
the grant.
Yay, okay. All right, that's exciting.
Very exciting.
I'm sorry, what was the timeline on that?
Yeah, that was, but that's kind of up in the air. We don't have exact timelines right now at this point, but that's something that we'll be
you at least have somebody
updating.
chosen. Okay,
Updating
great.
next time.
Great, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. No, it's Robert's turn.
Oh, Robert's turn, yeah. So intake, just a quick update on that. Obviously, with having Min Nguyen helping out with intake, we were catching up on our performance targets. Usually we have to respond or basically acknowledge a complaint within 10 days. That's our performance target. We were there because we'd had this position vacant for quite a while. And unfortunately, with Min gone, you know, we might suffer a little bit. I know that Chang, our other enforcement technician, is trying to do the best he can and just kind of triage, you know, the tasks and intake. But we'll do what we can, and I know, like Matt said, we'll get that position hired as quickly as possible. Based on what we're looking at, though, we are projected to receive just over 1,800 complaints, so it's going to be probably our biggest year ever as far as complaints received. So I know that a couple of years ago, or when I first started, I thought that we had kind of reached maybe a plateau with complaints because we had seen some random spikes, but it still looks like we haven't found where the normal is, and just, you know, gotten back to just a normal, I think, like a, you know, couple percent a year, just with the increase in population maybe, but we haven't found it. So it keeps increasing, but we're doing what we can. And I think we'll report further down, and obviously we've reported over prior meetings just the efficiencies that we've tried to implement to better handle that increase in complaints, do the best we can with the resources we have without, you know, hiring a ton of people or spending a lot of money. But I think the inevitability is that we will have to hire additional staff.
Yeah, to Rob's point, the board began fiscal year 22-23 with nearly 3,900 pending cases, and it's just been rising every year. And due to those efforts that we've made with staff implementing efficiencies, redirecting resources, we're closing slightly more complaints than we received at this point. Currently, our pending complaint, at the time of the report, the pending complaints decreased to 3,814 since the start of fiscal year, so we had brought the number down. We anticipate recruiting student interns over the summer to assist with some of the technical aspects of the enforcement process as well. Since the start of the fiscal year, we've closed 1,451 investigations, 27% of which were less than a year old, 66% were less than 3 years old, and the average number of days from receiving a complaint to assignment decreased as well.
Okay, so moving on to process updates. In terms of the, we've got some improvements in the complaint communication process. So currently, when we receive a complaint and it's filed against a veterinary premises regarding the care that was provided, the complaint is opened against the managing licensee. So during the course of the investigation, if it's determined that it was a different veterinarian that was the treating veterinarian that provided the care, then the respondent is then changed over to the treating veterinarian. So previously, when this update occurred, we were not always communicating that change to the MGL. And so in order to improve transparency and communication with the MGL, we are now notifying them that they're no longer associated with the complaint, but that the investigation will continue. So we're trying to give them that information, so kind of give them peace of mind. But that's a change that we've made, and hopefully that will improve. So we're just trying to improve communication with the licensees.
Okay. And then next up is the consultants and subject matter expert update. I know Dr. Bradbury touched on this a little bit during the MDC meeting. So at the beginning of the month, the board had over 600 cases that were waiting for a subject matter expert review. Obviously, I think there were, as it traditionally is, many of the cases, it's a respondent with multiple cases against them. So it looks like there were over 300 that were individuals, so with multiple cases in many of the 600. But we did transition some of our more seasoned experts over to the board consultant role. And here, obviously, sadly, with Dr. Johnson passing, the total consultants is actually 4, and I know it says 5 on the report here, but it is 4. And basically, in a nutshell, the process with the consultants to basically implement an efficiency is the case that is in the queue for an expert is going to be reviewed basically in order of age by a consultant who's going to determine whether or not there is a deviation from the standard of care. If there is a deviation from the standard of care, it'll stay in the expert queue.
I think it's more if there's a medical issue that a subject matter expert needs to opine on whether there's a deviation from a standard of care. I don't think they're opining on, just to be clear, because we don't want 2 experts talking about the standard of care. They're just saying, oh, is this a medical issue that needs a subject matter expert? Right. Is this a medical records, or there's nothing wrong?
Right. So they're doing an initial assessment. They're determining if there is a standard of care deviation. So like if they say, okay, this was overdosed or something like that, or they're thinking that, they'll say this can stay in the queue. There's not going to be a report. That way we don't have duplicative reports. If they do a review of the case and determine that it is a no violation case, or there is a record keeping issue, which would in most cases just be a simple educational letter, then they will do a short write-up and they'll put it back. We're utilizing the box, the cloud drive as well. They'll put that report back there. It'll notify the analyst, and then the analyst will go ahead and get that case closed based on that report. And so far, it's been working really well. I mean, I definitely have seen a lot of these cases come across my desk for review. Basically, the analyst is looking at it. They're ensuring that the consultant is addressing any of the allegations. That's always an important part of the review. But I think it's really expediting things. I don't want to be I'm typically not overly optimistic, but we are getting a lot of those, I think, to all 3 of us from the analysts. So, so far, knock on wood, it's been pretty great.
A great idea. I don't know if anyone else feels that, or nobody else is probably into this whole system as I am. But I was just wondering, because, you know, Dr. Waterhouse was mentioning some of the forms, and I didn't know if maybe we could, on the MDC, take a look at those just to see if we can streamline those for the consultants as well. So
like the record-keeping forms and that kind of thing? We actually, I know that she had mentioned it once, and I believe, Patty, I think you were looking at making one of those more concise, just based on some of those comments, but that I think could also be another.
Yeah, maybe when we have our meeting for the MDC, we can just, if you could send those.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be great. Okay.
Yeah, I know one of the important things is we're trying to make it as easy as possible, obviously, on these consultants, because they are doing a huge favor, I guess I'll call it. So anything that we can do on our side, whether it's management or the analysts, I'm sure they're very happy to do it. I think that's probably it for that section.
So during the last meeting, we introduced our newly implemented continuous improvement team, or CIT. This is the CIT was established basically to encourage board staff to participate and identify areas where we could improve our processes, since they're kind of the people who are dealing with the process on a day-to-day basis. So there's limited management oversight with the CIT. It's kind of like the staff determine how often they want to meet, what they want to talk about, what items they're going to prioritize, and it's kind of then they'll present it to us as management to say, yeah, go forward with this, or, you know, we think you're going in the wrong direction with it a little bit. But I wanted to share their mission statement, which was developed by the CIT members, and that is that the staff-centered continuous improvement team enhances the veterinary medical board's organizational effectiveness through identifying and implementing process improvements to better serve stakeholders at all levels. The CIT is currently co-chaired by Lead Probation Monitor Jeffrey Wheeler and Lead Enforcement Analyst Tara Reasoner, and they held their inaugural meeting on February 13th, 2023, with approximately 16 members of board staff electing to participate. The next meeting is currently pending, and the frequency at which the CIT meets will be somewhat dependent on the project identified and their level of involvement.
And then I'll touch on the subject matter expert program again. And then Dr. Bradbury, I think you touched on this also. So apologize if you're all familiar with this, but there was the quarterly subject matter expert training event that we had in February. I thought it was fantastic. I think pretty much everybody who was there thought it was great. We had a training before, about a year prior, that was a little bit more structured and I think formal, less interactive. And I thought this was great because it just felt organic. There was a lot of conversations that were happening. And I think there was a lot of information that came out of it. And I think it was really useful to the experts. And I think this is something that the experts have conveyed would be, was something they were looking for. So I think that kind of scratched that itch. So that, obviously we had a whole bunch of experts show up, which was great. We had our DAG liaison, Karen Denver, to give her perspective from the AG's office. And then, of course, the complaint process audit subcommittee. And then we had a few members of staff. So Ms. Denver just gave some feedback on, I mean, it was a lot of positive feedback from some of her colleagues who had dealt with our experts, just giving us kudos. She gave some tips about what to expect at hearing. There might be an upcoming training she had mentioned, which I think would be really great, because I know some of the experts are a little bit more, I think I think they're nervous, yeah, exactly, about going to hearing. And I think most of the time there are some exceptions, but I think most of the time the assigned DAG to a case really preps the expert and tells them what to expect. And I think once they're done, you know, it's kind of like anything else. You don't know what it is, so you're nervous about it. But I think that'd be really great to have that type of training. The complaint audit subcommittee also went over some of the feedback from the real world scenarios that were sent out, which I thought was really great, because there was a lot of responses to that. I know that most of our experts were really happy to have that kind of interactive, it was in a survey format scenario, because it's a little bit different than the training they received from the medical board. And just to get that feedback, I think was really great, because it was showing, hey, here are your comments, we want to address them, and you know, talk it out in case there's any questions. And then there was I think an at-length discussion about the standard of care, because that's always a big question when it comes to our experts drafting these reports, is establishing that, you know, questions about the gold standard versus the minimum standard, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really great. And I know Dr. Johnson, you know, I think he chimed in on that during the meeting as well. I know that there was also some great tips from some of the experts just about how to draft the report, and the order that is suggested. It's not just a hard rule, but how to go through the evidence to really have an unbiased approach to everything, because, you know, we're all humans, and that's kind of part of it. So I thought that, like I said, I think there was a lot of great information that was covered. Just like the previous meeting, I think we ended up going over a little bit on the time, but it just shows that there is a lot out there. It's not just hey, we're meeting for the sake of meeting. It's chock full of information. And then the report here goes over just some of the other topics, which I don't need to go through point by point, but I think it was really great, and I think the feedback after was fantastic as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to share one thing before we move on from the subject matter experts section. So as we've reported in previous meetings, we're constantly doing everything we can to recruit and retain more subject matter experts. And there are times when we have a subject matter expert and they might have a specific area that they practice in, and they're reviewing a case that's related to that area of practice, and for some reason or other, the subject matter expert might determine they can't complete the review, and then we might be in a position where we don't have any other people who can complete that kind of specific area, whether they're board certified or it's just like maybe an exotic kind of animal. So at times the subject matter experts will even help us recruit other subject matter experts, and I wanted to share a message that we're kind of privy to through that recruitment process. The subject matter experts sent to their group of colleagues when they determined they couldn't complete a review. And so they said, one thing that surprised me when I signed up, which multiple other experts have told me also, is that I expected that I would be defending other veterinarians who are practicing good quality medicine from spurious complaints. Sadly, it's just the opposite. The vast majority of complaints by the time they get to the expert are very legitimate complaints, and so we end up evaluating a lot of cases that are in violation or below standard of care, and hopefully improving the state of veterinary medical practice by doing so. And I think that really just speaks a lot to us and to what the subject matter experts do, that, we're really just trying to have quality reviews on, and we're not, going after people for anything that's unwarranted. We're really judicious and conscientious of our enforcement processes.
And just a quick public information update. In 2020, the board began posting all the enforcement actions on the website, and that included a brief description of the causes for action. So when we started doing that, the individual analysts were responsible for posting the actions and preparing the descriptions for the website. So since we have so many analysts drafting these descriptions, sometimes they were not consistent in their descriptions, and for that reason, at the end of last year, in order to increase consistency, we have assigned that to one technician. And so this technician is responsible for writing all the descriptions and posting that information to our website in a timely manner. And that description, before it's posted, it's reviewed by the board's lead enforcement analyst before it gets posted, and then management is also randomly spot checking that information to ensure that it's consistent, so consumers get something that's clear and concise all the time.
And then just for probation, the probation monitors are actively investigating 68 pending enforcement complaints against 24 probationers. We currently have 2 petitions for early termination pending. And since the last meeting, we filed 2 petitions for revocation and accusations. We currently have 51 probationers, 13 of which are told. No new licensees began their probation since last update, and 4 completed theirs. That's how we got to those numbers. And I just wanted to also mention that, due to the kind of numbers going down with probationers, we're actually now going to be giving the probation monitors caseloads of regular enforcement cases. Just like I said, we're always looking ways to redirect our resources and further improve our processes. And so they're going to take on a smaller caseload at first to kind of make sure that it's not going to impact the probationers, because obviously that's their highest priority. But this is an area where we can just have more people looking at enforcement issues more consistently. And so we're going to try it. And then we also just have an update on the SFSPCA ongoing matter, the disciplinary action vote results since the last meeting, and then the enforcement statistics and charts. If anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
I just wanted to say thank you, you guys. Since it's similar to what I said about licensing, but since I started, it just is a whole different scenario over there, and the work you're doing, it's starting to pay off. I mean, do you guys feel that way? It seems it's kind of exciting. Like, we have less cases than we did last time, and now you're closing more than you're getting, even though we're getting a record number. So I really just applaud you and all of the investment you're putting into the staff and the training of the staff. Is obviously paying off, and the fact that they want to participate in the continuous improvement CIC team, yes. Sorry, the CIT. It shows that as well, right? Like, they're excited about, you know, trying to improve things. So I just wanted to thank you all and recognize you and Rob for heading this whole thing up, and Matt as you joined. I think, you know, what a great team. And Patty, thank you for staying with us. And for continuing to try and make the inspection thing go. And we're really lucky to have you guys. So I just wanted to say that. I don't have any questions. Anybody else? Jennifer?
Just a comment. I also wanted to thank Patty because I forgot to mention her in my speech, but Patty has been here much longer than any of us have, so thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
But she looks younger than all of us.
Oh,
There you go.
thank you.
Kathy?
Thank you very much. And I want to reiterate what Christina said and Jennifer. I've been, you know, we've always had really great staff on this board since I was appointed in 2014, I guess. And everybody tried really hard and wanted to do a good job and everything else. But the efficiencies that Jessica and your team and everybody have made in the last 5 years have really just sort of started everything. And you really see it quarter by quarter as you do the reports for us. It's wonderful to see. I know we still have a backlog and it's hard, you know, we still are digging out, we'll be digging out. But the fact that the staff works so cohesively and you've changed up the system so that things aren't sitting on a desk for a long time. There's so many different ways that you all have, and I look at Jessica because she's kind of the leader of the pack here, have really done, and it's a great service to, I hope, the profession and the consumers. It's hard, 1,800 complaints a year. You tell other boards that, and they go, "Are you out?" You know, many of them don't have 1,800 vets, right? So, no, I'm sure they do, but the 1,800 complaints is so daunting, and the fact that you're doing it so well. And the SME training, I went to one years ago, which was one of like the first ones they ever had, which shocked me that they didn't have them very often. And you guys that has evolved into, I didn't get to attend this last one, but into a terrific training that hopefully is super helpful to all of the people involved. When's the plan for the next one? I know there's only so much.
It's supposed to be May.
Oh, this May. Okay.
Yeah, we're doing
so
quarterly.
It's every few months then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, every quarter. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I also wanted to thank you. I think you added some more data to the enforcement activity that I didn't remember before. Some of the restitution to consumers, cost recovery, some few things at the bottom, but the way this is presented is also terrific, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, we wanted to make that more in line with what's in the annual report, so.
Yeah, the data
that.
presented is very helpful.
Also adding efficiency, so you're not doing this later.
Yes, exactly.
Yay. Patty? Okay, Jessica.
I just wanted to kind of add to this. So I've been at DCA for over 15 years now, and I've never worked for or with a team as collaborative as this team. I am the first to say I'm not the easiest to work for, but this team is so open to acting quickly and to communicate and to adapt. We get a lot of things thrown our way, and they're always there, ready to help and to improve wherever possible. I think that when you look at enforcement too, the unique thing about this team is that when you look at other boards who have big enforcement programs, they also have managers, but those managers are over specific parts of the process. So you'll have a manager over complaints, a manager over inspections, a manager over intake, and or investigations, a manager over discipline, but they don't talk to each other, and they're all siloed. And that team, you have the manager and the team underneath, they work among themselves maybe, but they don't cross teams. And so it does a disservice to the management team themselves because they don't talk. And oftentimes enforcement and licensing doesn't talk. This team does. And the benefit of that is as a team, they can not rule, that was a poor choice of words, we don't rule anybody, but they can lead in a better way that everybody understands and grows their team. So their team knows how we structure enforcement. They will work a case from start to finish. We call it from cradle to grave. Their team knows the entire process, and that way they can work together. The management team can easily cover for each other. They learn from each other. They improve each other. And it's just a really, really awesome thing to see. Just the fact how they come up and they present, and they're ready to jump in for anything on this report. They can speak to anything happening. Is just really, really amazing. And I just want to thank you guys. We could not do what we do without you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I could too, I just kind of like what you said, I want to just thank my colleagues and the team as a whole, because they're always willing to take on anything and try anything. And, you know, it's like when one of us isn't in, the other one just steps in and covers their team form without any problem, and we never have any kind of issues. So it's really cool to have people you can work with like that.
And I think we touched on it, but also the analysts, the staff who's you know, not here at the meeting, but I know some are listening in, but I think they've been really really agile when it comes to the things that we've tried. And I know that it sometimes can be tempting to Jessica's point about, you know, being a place where you're really siloed and it's like, okay, I just do this one thing. And some people might be tempted by that. But I think a lot of the staff that we have here, they've just embraced that they have that control, that they have that involvement and that ownership of that case that they're investigating, because it does feel like a really big responsibility. And I think that we've also gotten people over to this board who were looking for that, who were looking for basically, you know, when you think of government work, you know, you think it's just so dry. But here it's challenging. And I mean, the people on my team, that's what I tell them is it's going to work your gray matter. Like, you're really going to have to use your brain when it comes to this. And you have to be ready for it. And you know, luckily my team is aware of that, and they're saying, this is what I signed up for. This is what I want to do. There are days where it is extremely stressful. About the 1,800 complaints that we get, the big difference here is that the vast majority of our complaints, there's something to it, and it's not just, hey, they were mean to me, or hey, they overcharged me for this. There's you know, I think we mentioned earlier, but you know, about half or more than half, it's death or serious harm. There's something that's going on when it came to the services that were rendered. And I've worked at another healing art board where a lot of the complaints just revolved around something as simple as advertising or money issues. But here, we're dealing with really serious allegations. And not only that, the patients that are involved don't have a voice. So there's an inherent challenge there. And then you're dealing with the practice where it's multiple species, multiple body systems. I mean, the scope is huge. So it's definitely very challenging, and I'm really, really happy that our team and our analysts and our technicians have been really up to the task.
Yeah, I just want to add one more quick thing, just as a reminder. I mean, we're kind of out of it now, so it's easy to forget the last few years. But the pandemic and the remote working environment and everything else added a huge amount of stressors to all the agencies. And I just, again, want to commend the staff and the processes you put in, your collaborative work ethic together for going through it and not missing a beat. Because you know, people don't understand how much work there is to this, and particularly the consumers, but we're all in your debt. So I want to thank you all.
Thank you all.
Well, just to add on to what everyone has said, yes, as far as like, are we excited for, you know, what the changes that we've made and how we've streamlined things? You have no idea how excited we are. We may not show it, but these things really, I mean, super excited about how this program has been turning things around. And, you know, just to touch on what Rob said about the complexity of these cases, even, you know, our SDAG, Karen Denver, has mentioned multiple times how complicated these cases are, and the DAGs that work our cases say these are the most complicated cases that they have to deal with. And so to improve, you know, our cases, Jessica is always drilling into us how you need to be consistent. All the work that we put out needs to be consistent, and there's so many of us doing the same work that, you know, it's very important. And so thanks to Jessica for just, you know, being the great leader that she is. And, you know, we get that in state service. And so, yeah, this is a great team, so happy to be a part of it.
Okay, I don't see any other comments by the board. Public comment? No, none in the room. Moderator, can you please open it up?
Certainly. We're opening up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the, let's see, enforcement report, you can look for the question mark icon, type comment in the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. Is there any comment on this report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, you guys.
Thank you all.
Okay. Well, we're in the home stretch, guys. 16D. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon.
You're sitting in the back so you don't get all the gushy. We're appreciative of what you do too. Yeah.
Thank you, and I'll give the update on the outreach report. So, back in February of 2023, we disseminated to our licensees and the public information about the ICVA ADC nominations that Tim had briefly mentioned in his report as well. Those help to develop the veterinarian exam for the NAVLE, and they help to broaden the representation across various license types and professions, from the academic, practice, species groups, and licensing committees. The ICVA sought nominations in 4 positions, which include bovine, exotic companion animal, poultry, and small ruminant. And the selected individuals will start in June. In addition, we had the RVT education stakeholder meeting, which was on March 14th. We had a pretty good turnout of 60 people that participated in that meeting, where we had discussed whether to propose to the board and the committee to actually eliminate the board's process in reviewing the schools and having them, since we already have 3 other entities that do those jobs very well, and they audit the schools, and they make sure that they're in compliance. Those would include the Committee on Veterinary Technician Education Activities, the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education, and the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges. So those 3 entities already do the job. It just seems like an additional layer that we would like to remove ourselves from. And we got very positive feedback from the public from that. Overwhelmingly, they were in favor of that. In other news, the cures fee is going to decrease. So instead of it being $11 annually, it'll decrease down to $9. That starts on July 1st. And the way the system works right now is you pay for 2 years, so the bill will be $18 for people that pay for that 2-year renewal through Breeze. The next one is on the grant programs that were provided by the USDA. Those grants kind of give the veterinarians up to $25,000 a year for up to 3 years to repay their loans if they are willing to participate in high priority veterinarian shortage areas, so places where we really need the veterinarians to assist the communities. In addition, there was 2 types of loans, which included the Veterinary Medical Loan Repayment Program, and then the other loan was the Veterinary Services Grant Program. Both grants worked hand in hand, but the smaller grant, the Veterinary Services Grant Program, is kind of split into 2 grant types. One includes the education, extension, and training aspect, and rural practice enhancement. These help qualified entities to develop, implement, and sustain veterinary services through education, training, recruitment, placement, and retention. And that's available for veterinarians, vet techs, and students in veterinary technology programs. That's meant to help rural practice areas and helping them develop more services in the rural areas. And the deadline for that application was March 29th. In addition, we also posted information about the xylazine and how, even though it is a medication that is approved for veterinary use by the FDA, there are concerns for that medication for use on humans. So we did disseminate that to all licensees and consumers through our listserv to inform them of the dangers of those drugs being produced or given to humans. We also informed our licensees of the consequences and also the responsibility as licensed professionals to ensure that that medication is properly used. In addition, we had the association meetings with our EO and Tim holding the monthly meetings with CARPTA and providing them updates and answers to their questions. And next week, actually on April 26th, we're going to have recruitment and instructional videos that our public affairs teams will discuss with SMEs and inspectors, which includes kind of their roles in the process for enforcement. At this point, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Kathy.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff, very much. Just a quick comment. Thank you very much on the ICVA ADC applications. We got 16 applications, and 2 of which were from California, so that's great. I want to see a lot of Californians all through this. And then, secondly, I have just a random question on the xylazine situation, which somebody said the federal agencies are looking into. Is there an alternative if there's some knee-jerk federal reaction and vets are prohibited, or, they just prohibit that medication? Is there an alternative in reuse?
I'm going to look at the equine veterinarians in the room.
Yes, there is. Some of them necessarily don't work as efficiently, and some of them have effects that are often overrated but do happen, like paraphimosis or something, but doesn't bother the fillies very much. But the other medications, the combinations of torbegesia, kinase promazine, Valium, all have their regulatory issues as well.
Right. Right. Okay, thank you. Hopefully they're going to work something in. It's not going to prohibit vets, but.
Cost. Yeah.
And we also have choices, but they cost a whole lot more.
Okay. Yeah, so that's not really an equal choice.
And just to clarify what the comment was, it was the board's student liaison, Mandy Ayers, mentioned that SAVMA is lobbying Congress right now with respect to xylazine. I guess there's a bill that would make xylazine a Schedule III controlled substance, which may be a good idea, so that drug is tracked similar to the other controlled substances under California law, but anyway, that's what the idea is. It wouldn't be a Schedule I drug, which is, those are the prohibited drugs.
Yeah, I was under the impression, and I think Dr. Miller may know, but I was under the impression that the AVMA had successfully lobbied, and there were 2 bills that probably will be joined together, one that was going through the House and one that was going through the Senate, that it was going to be made into a Schedule III drug for human use, and then not a scheduled drug if it was being used in veterinary medicine, so that, which would make it, I think, much easier for the veterinarians that are using it, and because there's concern about making it the scheduling it and the limits that would place on practice. So he's nodding, so I think that I'm not misstating that. So
Thank you. Just wondering.
okay, any public comment in the room? None. Moderator, please open it up online.
And we've opened up the public comment feature of WebEx. If anyone has a comment on the outreach report, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hands. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Are there any comments on the outreach report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, strategic report.
So really quickly, this is just I know it's a refresher for you guys, but more so for Dr. Grant. So what you're looking at is the strategic plan objective tracker, and so it's part of the board strategic plan from 2020. If you want to know what the board's directive was to staff, that's identified. You have the individual goals, and then under the sections immediately following the goals, you'll have the 1.1, 1.2, and they're in bold. And those are the objectives that the board had directed staff to implement. Under that is how staff worked with Solid to develop success measures of what that looks like. We developed specific tasks of how we are going to achieve those objectives with target completions and status updates. And so in there, you'll see all the stuff that we have done to fulfill those objectives that has been directed to the board. The main thing that we are focusing on now is with the Complaint Audit Subcommittee is looking at that complaint prioritization statute that has been mentioned previously, but it's the statute that directs us how to prioritize our resources based on the allegations that are presented. And we had discussed how the majority of our complaints that come in fall under priority 1, because it's based on allegations of when they're coming out the gate and we're receiving these complaints, they're allegations that oftentimes involve death or serious harm of the animal. And so it's hard to prioritize based on that when the majority of our complaints come under priority 1. And so that's one thing that the Complaint Audit Subcommittee is going to start addressing over this quarter. So we'll have an update at the next meeting.
When are we, is it late this year that we're planning on doing this again, the strategic plan?
Yeah, we're on calendar with Solid to do it in October.
Okay. So I think 2 of you have not been on the board for that, so we'll have an all-day meeting where we develop this plan and come up with some new goals. Okay, any other comments? I don't see any comments in the room. Moderator, can you open it up to the public, please?
And we've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the strategic plan, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And call-in users may press *3 to raise their hands. And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, I just closed my thing. I believe now we are on to the final agenda item, number 17, future agenda items and next meeting dates.
So currently, we have basically all the things that the MDC is working on, so plan on having that coming to the board. So again, anything from the Equine Practice Subcommittee, the Medical Record Subcommittee, we have the complaint prioritization that I had just referenced, looking at drug compounding and Business and Preferences Code 4826.5 related to who is authorized to compound medications. We have looking at RVT pathways. We have shelter regulations coming. We have the inspection mandate that we're still evaluating, the 20% that's in statute. We have looking at the spectrum of care, creating articles and FAQs for that, animal blood bank FAQs, and all the legislation happening too. So anything else you'd like to add, let us know.
I did have a quick question, though.
Yeah.
I know we had talked about trying to replace the veterinary member of the MDC as soon as we can. Is there some sort of a open window of for applications prior to us looking at them again? I mean, I think there is some reasoning behind looking for someone with large animal and equine experience and trying to encourage them to apply, but I don't want to reach out and talk to them if there's no window of
So it is
opportunity.
open now.
Okay.
So I would encourage anyone to, if you know someone, encourage them to apply now. And we're looking at May for the date. So if you guys haven't responded to the doodle poll that went out to indicate your availability, please do so. And then we hope to know the date really soon.
Thank you.
And I think that we're going to try and open up that time frame, so maybe we'll have to re-doodle poll.
Okay.
Yeah, so because we're going to be having the meeting to discuss
the legislation
Yes.
as well. Yes.
Yeah, Kathy.
What's the time period for the MDC posting? Starting now till when?
We opened it for 2 weeks, so I think it started on Tuesday, and so I think it closed on May 2nd. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim? I think it's May 2nd.
Okay.
Okay, any public comment? None in the room. Moderator, would you please open it up?
Yeah.
And we've opened up the WebEx Q&A for ideas for future meetings.
See about that, this Mark.
And
But they either wants to do it just really, really right or, yeah.
my apologies, we were getting some audio interference, but we were open for public comments for meetings, future meeting agenda items. You can look for the question mark icon or raise your hand by clicking on the hand logo.
So I'll try to run it by him a little bit. Maybe he can.
I do not see any requests for public comment.
Great.
I heard from Barry and
Okay, you can close that, and with that.
Well, before we adjourn, I just want to clarify for the record, we are skipping 18 through 23 because we have no need for a closed session.
All right.
Great. So on to agenda item 24, adjournment. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.